Okay, call the meeting to order. Ms. Clary?
Thank you. Thank you. Dear Lord, thank you for giving us all the strength, faith, compassion, and endurance necessary to serve our communities. We pray for our leaders who are tasked with something far greater than any of us have ever experienced in our lifetimes. We pray for the wisdom, cooperation, and decision-making that they will need. We thank our county leaders and the employees as they are doing their jobs, and they all do it with a smile. We're grateful for that. We truly thank you for last night's rain and the corn and the blueberries and all the bounty that Washington County gives us. And right now we are thinking about Sam Hall and his mom, and know that we're with them today, and know that you're with them. So in your name, amen.
Thank you. Mr. O'Brien?
Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In case of fire or other emergency, there's 3 exits to that room, there, and there. Please then proceed to the nearest stairway, go down the stairway, and clear the building as far away as possible so rescue squads and emergency people can do their job. Thank you very much. Please silence your cell phones.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hankey.
I am here.
Mrs. Fedler. She indicating.
I see
Here.
There
Here.
we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Mr.
Here.
Ferguson.
Here.
Mr. Ferguson.
I'm
Mr.
here.
Shaw.
Here.
Mr. Hall. Mr. Losaw.
Here.
Mr. Hicks.
Here.
Mr. Ward.
Here.
Mr. O'Brien.
Here.
Mr. Haff.
Here.
Mr. Campbell.
Here.
Mr. Skelly.
Here.
Mr. Hogan.
He's here.
Mr. Wilson.
Here.
Mrs. Clary.
Here.
Mr. Griffith.
Here.
Mr. Rozelle.
Here.
Thank you. You've all got the condensed minutes from June 19th, 2020. I'll consider them accepted as mailed unless there's any additions or corrections. Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, we will proceed. We're going to hop off chart just for a second here. Have Tim Hardy give us some COVID-19 update.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you can see my screen there. We just put together a quick update. The chairman asked us to do that for this morning's meeting. So we are continuing our response to COVID-19 on the county level between county administration, the county attorney's office, public health, public safety. We're continuing to keep the coronavirus information site updated daily at washingtoncountiny.gov/coronavirus, which includes our current COVID-19 statistics, any changes to county operations or departments, the sign up for the e-newsletter that goes out every day, and any important links or updates from the CDC, New York State Department of Health, or the New York Forward site. Certainly there are portions of the New York pause that remain in effect. As you know, as we go through the reopening phases, there are a lot of questions regarding that. So we have the links right to all the resources for New York pause available on our site under Restarting Washington County. On the county level, the county state of emergency and executive orders that remain in effect. The state of emergency was last renewed on July 10th and is in effect for 30 days unless rescinded earlier. And the executive order, the last one, remains in effect. It was issued on July 2nd of 2020. And currently, public health is actively monitoring a number of people, as they have been throughout the entire process here. But distribution of hand sanitizer and cloth face coverings is still available for our county municipalities, local municipalities, and our local businesses and organizations. So any of you who have anyone in need in your communities, please send them our way, and we will get them whatever we can. One of the things that we're very busy working on right now is with the schools and their reopening plans and trying to make sure that they have everything they need that we can aid them and get them. We'll just run through a quick update of the statistics as of this morning. So currently, you see the terminology has changed a little bit. So you see the PUM, persons under monitoring, it used to be persons under investigation. As things have changed with the state's contact tracing program, there's a number of different terms that are used. So the generic term for everybody now who's under monitoring of public health They're not all under active investigation. So 88 is the number that we're at as of this morning, and that includes any of the active positives and then any contacts or anyone surrounding that who are isolated or in quarantine. So you see that number's gone up considerably from where we were about 3 weeks ago. We are up to 227 confirmed positives in the county, and 211 of which have recovered. No hospitalizations. Our deceased number remains at 13, thankfully, and our release number is at 1,317 as of the close of business yesterday. As of this morning, total tested number is at 11,200. So you can see we updated the statistics where we were every Tuesday and Friday as we were doing the local officials briefings before we put those on hold. So there's the chart with the updated numbers as we've gone through, and you can see the significant jump between July 3rd and July 7th. Obviously, part of what came out of that was the travel advisory kicked in shortly thereafter, which is a good considerable number. I think as of this morning, we're about 35 of our total persons under monitoring are related to travel currently. So there are still some community cases that are out there. That's still a significant number of those. No changes in hospitalizations or deaths. You can see they've held steady where they are right there. Just a couple of notes from public health and ourselves. To help keep our communities healthy and safe, we're just asking everybody to stay home if you're not feeling well. Please, if you're headed out to the public, social distance, keep at least 6 feet between you and others. Make sure you wash your hands as often as you can and mask up in public places or where you can't social distance. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer those. If not, I will get you the answer after the meeting, but please relay that information to anybody in your communities, organizations who need anything. We'll be glad to help however we can.
Okay, any questions for Tim? Seeing none, thank you, Tim. Communications.
For communications, Assemblyman Steck and the Adirondack Park Agency both acknowledged receipt of our resolution number 162, a resolution requesting review and change of ATA policy on agency review of proposals for new telecommunication towers and all tall structures in the Adirondack Park. That's all I have for communications.
Thank you. We have the audit committee report.
Reports of the Auditing Committee to the Board of Supervisors. Resolved that said report to the Auditing Committee dated July 15, 2020, totaling $2,907,773.89, be and the same hereby is in all respects accepted, approved, and adopted, and be it further resolved that the County Treasurer be and he hereby is authorized and directed to pay the several amounts set forth in said reports in the total of $1,389,838.23. And be it further resolved that the attached is a separate report in the total of $1,467,631.23 from the County Auditor for the period of June 15th through July 14th, 2020.
Chairman, so move the audit report.
Moved by Supervisor Losaw. There's a second.
Second.
I've got O'Brien, I've got Griffith, I've got Clary, and Ferguson. Anybody else? Okay, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And I would ask you on the ones that are at home, when you do your aye, also raise your hand. Okay, or your nays. Okay, Supervisor, privilege of the floor. Don't see anybody here to have privilege. Anybody?
I believe Mr. Ward has.
Mr. Ward, you've got.
No, that, the speaker, had to cancel out. Who's gonna come in?
Thank you. Introduction of resolutions. We will need a motion to set aside the rules for resolution 185, which is going to require a 2/3 vote. Anybody wish to move that?
Motion.
Moved by Supervisor Haas, there's a second.
Second.
Rozell, Fedler, Wilson, and Ferguson. And Hogan. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, discussion. Mr. Campbell.
this is a different one for me because I usually will set aside the rules for certain things. This one is different only for one reason. Anytime we've ever confirmed anybody
I'll answer the roll.
through the IDA, whichever county has put their person up, we have something from the county actually. In this point, we have nothing. I did talk to one supervisor this morning, and he said it's because it's coming by resolution, and they don't know who it will be at this point. I'm going to abstain because I'm on the IDA and don't figure I should decide who comes to work with us. But I've worked with Travis in the past, and I certainly welcome if he comes to the board again. I would appreciate that. I just have a problem with the way we're doing it, that we're forcing a hand of another county before they've even reached out to us to confirm their appointment. As it is right now, we don't even know if that's who they're going to pick. So this one here is totally different and against anything we've ever done. We've never really voted for someone else's person before they've even voted for them, and I don't think we want them doing that to us. So I'm not going to go there. And the other thing is Travis brings a lot to the board. I appreciate what he brings to the board, but some people do have reservations of the way he does treat people when they're not exactly on his side and can get very personal. I've seen it with our own board. I've kind of gotten used to it, so I haven't really held that against anybody because I see it all the time. It doesn't make anybody appreciate it more, including myself. And so I'm just going to leave it at that, and I'm going to abstain. But I do appreciate what Dana's trying to accomplish, that this gets done quicker, faster, and all that. I would like to see it happen first. And in fact, if Frank reaches out to Bob or something during the meeting, that they've already passed it there. But I think it sounded like they have a 2-hour meeting or so. Sounds like by the time they get to any of this, we will already be adjourned, unless there's a lot going on here that I'm not aware of.
Mr. Hass.
Brian, it sounds like you're discussing the resolution, which is not the time yet. It's ironic that you made a personal attack on someone while you decry a personal attack. A little bit ironic to me. At the end of the resolution is a little bit of a savings clause. It says this resolution is moot unless Warren County also has a similar resolution. Supervisor from Warren County did reach out to me, which prompted me from doing this. So when you say we normally wait for their chairman to bring this forward, if you read the policy, the 2020 policy, the IDA, it said that the boards of supervisors appoint the members. If the boards of supervisors can appoint, then I can nominate.
Not for another town.
Mr. O'Brien.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with the fact that this should come from, in the past, and the process has been that the nomination from the county usually comes to the other county that makes that and submits to us, and we approve that. I will vote for anyone who is put on the floor by Warren County that we know of, but I find that if we start this precedent, then we would have the same issue if they came up and said, we tried to do something the same way, and Warren County tried to do the same thing to us. We should have their selection, however it comes to us. Before that, and right now, I can't do it. I welcome Travis to come back. If he comes back, I'll work with anyone. But I just find the process to be a dangerous precedent for us to set.
Any other hands?
Yes, Mr. Oak.
I got Mr. Ward.
I agree with Mr. O'Brien that it's a bad precedent, and we should wait till we get the nomination from Warren County. I wouldn't want them doing resolutions telling us who we should nominate. So I concur with Mr. O'Brien on that.
Okay, Mr. Hogan.
So Hanky, are we talking right now about setting aside the rules, or are we actually talking about the actual resolution?
We're supposedly talking about setting aside the rules.
And it's the only resolution that we're setting aside the rules for.
We're talking about the resolution yet.
Mr. Hass.
if Warren County appoints Mr. Whitehead, he will be able to attend the next IDA meeting, which I believe is Monday. I think we sorely need his attendance there.
Okay, let's return to what we're doing and talk about whether we're setting aside the rules for this motion or not. Is there anybody that has any discussion on setting aside the rules? Okay, I'm gonna ask Debbie to roll call this because I wanna make sure it's right, not me picking things off the screen.
Mr. Hanky?
No.
Mrs. Sadler?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Losaw?
No.
Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
No.
Mr. O'Brien?
Abstain?
Mr. Half?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Abstain?
Mr. Skelly?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Clary? Mrs. Clary?
No.
Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. O'Tell?
Yes.
The motion is defeated. 2,489 yes, 1,160 no, 240 absent, 180 abstain.
Okay, so the motion is defeated. So you don't need to do any reading? You don't need a recess, right? Whoever's got the dogs ought to mute, so we quit hearing dogs all the time. I'm not anti-dog, it's just, okay, we'll move on to consideration resolutions.
Resolution number 168 by Supervisor Clary, Campbell, Skelly, Ferguson, Losaw, Ward, Wilson, titled Make Appointments to the Washington County Youth Advisory Board.
Chairman, I'd like to move resolution number 168.
Move by Supervisor Clary, second. Got Campbell, O'Brien, Losaw, Skelly, Fedler, Rozelle, Wilson. Okay. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 169 by Supervisors Hicks, Ward, O'Brien, Skelly, Clary, title Amend Staffing Pattern Sheriff.
Mr. Chairman, moving 169.
Move by Supervisor Hicks, second. O'Brien, Campbell, Losaw, Skelly, Ward, Fedler, Clary. Discussion. This is a slower process, isn't it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 170 by Supervisors Hicks, Ward, O'Brien, Skelly, Clary, title Amend Staffing Pattern Jail.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution 170.
Moved by Supervisor Hicks, second. Losaw, O'Brien, Campbell, Clary, Fedler, and Ward. Discussion. Mr. Shaw.
You have good peripheral vision. You never turned your head. Under budget statement, it says funds in the budget for this change. I don't know what that means when compared to the budget impact of the one before. It says it has significant savings. Is there going to be added cost in the long run for this?
So,
doing essentially is by increasing the one position from part-time to full-time, you're increasing not only the salary, but you're increasing the fringe rate from approximately 22% to 50%. You are, on the other side of that balance sheet, you're then losing a part-time position with that associated salary and a fringe benefit of 22%. Your net increase is going to be about 28% of fringe. Why I say it depends is that 28% is entirely health insurance, so it completely depends on the individual. If they elect to take health insurance and what plan they take, should they choose to do it. So it's difficult to give an actual dollar amount because the entire delta is health insurance.
And they might be on a spouse's insurance, and it might not even be, because we don't know.
Could, or they could take a family
Right.
PPO, and it could be very expensive, we just don't.
It's such a vast difference that there's no way to calculate that.
Mr. Hicks?
Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, it'd also be variable upon how many hours that part-time cook would have worked, which we don't know. And also, the sheriff felt that he still had enough in his .1 to cover this change, so the budget impact, it would be in the budget. You wouldn't need a budget amendment, but the number may have a change in it. We just don't know what it is yet. Is that reasonable for what we were told in the committee?
That is accurate, yeah.
Okay.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. I'm gonna call a brief intermission here on the resolutions, because I see our Assemblyman, Mr. Stack, has appeared in the lower corner of my screen, and, so I might give him a moment to address us if he wishes to.
All right, thanks, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. I hope everybody's well. Seen a few of you in the last month since your last county board meeting. I want to start by saying I'm not sure if Elise joined your call or not earlier this morning, but I know that a lot of what's hinging on coming out of the federal government is going to control what funding is going to be for local governments and our school districts here. And she said earlier that she thinks in the next 2 or 3 weeks, there'll be movement out of Washington on that bill that she's been working on for state aid. And obviously, as you all recall, in the budget, the governor and his staff was given authority to make unilateral cuts to the budget depending on where revenues were. And that'll affect certainly county government and also our school districts to the tune of potentially 20% or more, which certainly is a big deal for all of you. So a lot of what is going to happen is going to be determined in the next couple of weeks down in Washington. So I know that she mentioned that, and I just wanted to let you know that I view that as key to what we're all trying to work on. With that said, certainly in the last month, the Zoom world continues for all of us. And my focus, a lot of it has been on what started out a month or two ago as phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 reopening, today has morphed into phase 4A, 4B, 4C, 4D as we get more and more granular, and the reality in the rest of the country has changed as well. So, that's, as you can imagine, frustrated a lot of you and certainly a lot of business owners in varying industries. What's the rules? Why are the rules for that business that's very similar to mine more flexible than they are for me? And so that's dominated a lot of the discussion, I know, for myself and my office, as well as I'm sure the rest of my colleagues. This past week, we had a whole full docket of committee meetings in the Assembly in preparation for next week's session. So we have session Monday through Thursday scheduled for next week. From the committee meetings this week, it seems that most of the agenda is essentially routine end of year kind of legislation. There weren't too many special, unique statewide, big deal, new reacting to COVID or reacting to anything else that's going on out there. We did a fair amount of that a few weeks ago in the legislature, but it looks like a lot of the legislation that we'll be taking up next week is your routine end of session kinds of bills. With that said, it's Friday afternoon. We could always get a message, or there could be something that gets negotiated over the weekend that we'll be dealing with next week. But as of this moment, I'm not aware of anything. So if all goes as expected, normally our session would have ended at the end of June. But this year with COVID, we've had session suspended and then restarted remotely. So we do have session next week. Many people seem to think that this is it, which I think explains why we had a full slate of committee agendas to get through this week and a lot of, like I said, routine bills. And then, but with that said, because of everything that's going on this year and the large budget gap that we have and a reaction potentially needed after the federal government does what they're going to do, that we may end up coming back into session later on in the year. But in theory, for the stuff that we normally would do, I think next week is probably it. And so that's really it by way of an update to you all. And just I think that the next 2-3 weeks federally is going to dictate a lot of what's going to happen in all the states, and especially our own, and especially the counties and school districts. And if there's any questions, Chairman, happy to take them.
Okay. Anybody got anything specific for Mr. Stack?
I do.
Mr. Ferguson.
Yes, Mr. Steck. I'm having a problem with my my internet services in our town of Dresden. We have almost zero. Schools are talking about not reopening, and my taxpayers are calling me and wanting their money back for the school taxes. Our kids aren't able to get on the internet to be at a virtual school. So I was wondering, maybe you could help me somehow get a better internet up here. Whitehall has Spectrum, Putnam has Spectrum. I'm about 11 miles, my town's about 11 miles long in between those two, and I can't get any internet services, whether it's Slick, Spectrum, a tower, anything.
Well, I'll lead with saying I think you should do your job the best you can as supervisor to tamp down anyone's expectations that they're going to get their money back from the school taxes. I just don't see that happening. But certainly their frustration is understandable. And obviously, with that said, the reality of the mechanics are these are private companies that are seeking and have sought, and in many cases have received grant funding to build out, and there's the realities of construction on the ground that'll take time, as well as now they're being slowed down because of everything going on with COVID. So what I don't know off the top of my head is where a build out plan is in your town right now, and we keep asking for that and from the providers for various towns, and they're very short on specifics. This will happen by August or by September. With that said, I mean, it's already mid-July. I will be very surprised if you see anything significantly change in internet access by the beginning of September when schools want to open. Your schools aren't the only ones that are complaining about this, and you should know and certainly share with your constituents that we're well aware of it, and we're doing the best we can to push these providers. And there's some legislation out there that would facilitate getting there's the make ready and the poll fees, the tax fees for putting fiber on the telephone poles is a game stopper for a lot of these projects. It's just with those taxes for the small amount of potential customers, it just makes a lot of that new expansions unfeasible. But the ones that have been granted in the past by the broadband office, I just don't see that they're going to have build out by early September. I know that your schools are aware of this. I've heard from some of them, including Whitehall, actually called and expressed concern that, hey, the state ed is telling us we have to provide X, Y, and Z, and they're not in charge of getting internet service. So they're, the school's frustrated as well. I know that the broadband office and the governor's office are aware of it. I just, again, I think that the realities of how quickly can this happen, and do I see it significantly changing in the next 2 months before schools start? No. So I think this is something that our schools are going to have to figure out and be forced to deal with. It's not their fault. I feel bad for them, but I just, physically, I don't see how there's going to be a game-changing amount of broadband service added in the next 2 months. Not a great answer, I know.
Great. Thank you very much.
But yeah, no, thanks. And thanks for calling. And I've heard from some of your constituents as well. And again, not just Northern Washington County, it's all over.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you that you mentioned Southern Washington County, because Southern Washington County is in great need of internet services in Salem School District, which encompasses Hebron, Salem, Jackson, and surrounding areas. It's necessary.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Sue. Yep.
Mr. Half.
Dan, Slick Network has been seen recently in Hartford, putting out the little flags where they mark out poles and where they want to put a pole. Some places require additional poles, I think because of the hierarchy of what's on the line, with the spacing in between. Now that is a grant, the broadband build out that was already approved. I think it was called the New York Broadband Initiative. So there is some progress, and I understand when Slick is coming, that they're coming from the north southerly. So if they're in Hartford, everyone knows is the heart of the county. I would think maybe Paul, there already have been through your town if you have any areas that are slick. But people should keep an eye out for slick crews, and hopefully that will come and ease a little bit of a shortage on broadband. But Dan, you're right. As far as new money coming forward, I think the school issue will be the driving force that will try to make that happen. And it's no longer talk about how we wish we had additional broadband. It really is a huge problem. Children trying to do their homework and everything else, and attend classes and do everything else online. This is something we have to do. We can't wait any longer. It has to be done.
Yep. Well, and it's been said, I completely agree, Dana, and it's been said before, that, we had the strong case of how important this was before COVID-19, but now with everyone trying to work remotely, get educated remotely, telemed remotely, that we've just added that much more volume demand, which is an infrastructure issue. And if you don't have any existing infrastructure, it just heightens it even more. It's good to know that you've seen that activity by Slick down in Hartford, because you're right, they are coming from the north. So I'm presuming that whatever Slick is going to be building out, they've already laid that groundwork. Again, it's just, even if there's money tomorrow to design, and then to procure the equipment and get the construction done, it's going to be a real challenge for schools unless they see the activities already occurring. They're going to be opening school without, I think, a significant improvement. But back to Paul in Dresden, we'll look into it on our end. We'll see what we can find out, Paul, and we'll get back to you when we know something more for you. But yeah, thanks, Dana.
I have one more question, Dan, Bob, if that's okay.
Yep, go ahead.
Dan, have you heard of a cow cell on wheels? It isn't necessarily cell, it can be internet. It's these trailers that come up with a tall telescopic tower that reaches up high. Can we have some kind of a short-term rollout of some cows through either the feds or the states so that we can temporarily increase our broadband until the permanent infrastructure comes through?
I've heard of that technology, and we can certainly ask those questions too. That's a great idea.
There was one behind my house for about a year before they built that. The Hudson Valley built their tower, and it's operated by air. It's about a 100-foot tower that goes way up high. They have FEMA has these in case there's a hurricane and they have to establish communications. They come in on a trailer. They put the tower, or it's just a big tall, like a flagpole way up. And let's do something about this. Let's not just keep saying, well, it'll come around. Let's have some emergency stopgap measures until the permanent solution can come through.
Absolutely. Dana, do you happen to know that one that was behind you? Was it a provider that brought that in, or who did they tie into? Who used them?
The tower behind my house, it's a 120-foot monopole. It's owned by Hudson Valley Wireless, and Hudson Valley Wireless owned this cow. They still own it. I think they have two. The one from behind my house was going to head to Granville after it left. I don't know if it ever went there, Matt, but they do have these things, and the provider at that point was Hudson Valley Wireless. Now, talking about Hudson Valley Wireless, full disclosure, I gave them an easement to bury underground power through my property. So I have a relationship with Hudson Valley Wireless. Well, Hudson Valley is also coming out with new antennas that look like a tablet, and they're not really directional. They can go through trees. The old technology was you had to see it line of sight. These new antennas can go through trees, can serve a lot more people. But I don't know if the other providers have towers, but I think FEMA has a lot of these things.
Okay, we'll look into that, absolutely.
I just want to say, from the perspective of a dairy county, I'm offended by calling them cows. Mr. O'Brien.
Elise or Dan, I had heard some information that there was some funding going to be available for MiFis, that the schools are going to have some funding that they could distribute these to some of the people that are in this situation, help them out. Have you heard anything more about that?
I missed what you said. There's funding for what?
MiFis, little portable internet that work off AT&T and Sprint and Verizon. You can get your internet off of. It's 4G or LTE.
Sure. Yes, I can answer that. We are looking at additional funding for school districts. Obviously, their technological pivot and really having to upgrade many of their operations over the course of this crisis, that's come at a very significant cost. So in this next COVID package, which I know Dan broadly talked about, we are looking for direct funds. Part of that would be for those technology resources that are necessary for students and teachers. So those portable MiFis would be included in that. And I will just take this opportunity to provide a brief update, if that's okay, before going back to Q&A. So as Dan mentioned, we just got off the Warren County call, and I am anticipating an additional COVID relief package. There will be multiple parts of that package. I anticipate robust state and local aid. That's really important for Washington County and all the municipalities and counties across the district. In addition, the school district funding, particularly as our superintendents are working very hard to put forth plans as to how we continue to ensure that our students are learning, with a particular focus on those with special needs and disabilities who have been very underserved over the course of this crisis. And making sure that we have the resources for the technological needs. I absolutely agree, Paul from Dresden and Sue from Salem. If anything, this crisis has highlighted the digital divide and the fact that it is unacceptable that a student in Dresden or in Salem doesn't have the same access as a student in Saratoga Springs. I am in discussions with the FCC chairman, continuing to raise my concerns regarding the lack of coverage and access in the Adirondacks and the 21st district broadly. We did work with the FCC directly to ensure that New York State is eligible for additional funds for the rural broadband build out. Initially, we were not eligible because of the concept of coverage, and unfortunately how they do the mapping in New York State. Sometimes they do count satellite as adequate coverage. We know adequate coverage. Dana, I think your concept of having those mobile units is a really good one. We can look to see if there are resources from FEMA to see if that's available. But I like that concept in the interim. And then the other issue I wanted to highlight is we continue to provide support for hospitals and community health centers. I announced over $4 million of additional funds for Glens Falls Hospital. That's significant. I was able to rewrite the formula with the Department of Health and Human Services to ensure that 2 hospitals in my district were covered that were previously left out of federal dollars for rural hospitals. So a lot of moving pieces. I anticipate the federal bill will be in the next 3 weeks. We're going into session next week and then the week after and potentially the first week of August. But that's my update, and then we can go back to questions for Dan and I.
Okay. Thank you. Any additional questions? Mr. Campbell?
Yeah, Elise, to give you a little perspective, this is what's even tougher in Hebron. We don't have our own school, but we have 5 school districts, which would be Salem, Granville, Hartford, Greenwich, and Argyle. So since we have absolutely no internet other than satellite in the town of Hebron, and we did get phase 3 funding through the state, and Slick is headed there, just it's taken a while to come to fruition. So the people in those 5 districts, because they live in Hebron, suffer with lack of internet. So it's not just the school districts themselves, but then within a town in the district, they're really at a disadvantage, which is a tremendous burden. And so I hear from people from all those different school districts. Second of all, the funding that you talk about coming to municipalities and some of it coming directly to towns and counties, that's real good. The problem is if New York State doesn't get covered, they take a bigger percentage away from us. Do we have any idea how New York State's going to be covered and how that will affect us? Or are we still up in the air totally on that?
You know, we are up in the air. I do think it's important to note that to date, $9 billion have been provided directly to New York State. That's not including the direct funds through the Paycheck Protection Program to the hospitals, to the community health centers, and through stimulus payments. So that was direct aid to New York State. On top of that, the FMAP funding, which I know took too long for the state to release that. We advocated for those billions of dollars to be sent directly to the counties. My priority is ensuring that when possible, making sure that the federal aid goes directly to the counties, to municipalities, so New York State is not able to withhold that funding is going to need for the direct state funding, because of course New York State is, as unfortunately is the trend, is pushing this down to the county level in terms of those cuts, and we want to make sure that from a federal perspective we're providing the funding needed to ensure that our counties continue to provide those important services, whether it's public health costs or whether it's our operations and infrastructure costs for each of the counties.
Thank you both for what you do. It was great to meet with you earlier this week.
Mr. Half?
Thank you. Elise and Dan, back to the issue of cow. These things are designed to be fully independent. They normally have a small propane generator on them, so they can go to a little bit remote area if there's a high hill or mountaintop, because we all know the coverage works better there. I'm sure that the wireless carriers, Verizon, AT&T, whatever, they have these things because they're designed to go where there's a sudden loss of coverage. If you don't have a house, you can plug it in. One behind my house had about a 600-foot long extension cord from my garage to it, and it only used about 200 watts to power it. Very little power is required to use these things. So we don't really need the infrastructure to support a cow. They completely support themselves.
Thanks, Dana.
Yeah, thanks, Dana. That's helpful.
Good morning, Dan. And I may be preaching to the choir and borderline insensitive, but an update that I got last night showed that New York had open testing sites in Houston. And I have to tell you, if that's a little bit of a hard pill for me to swallow, watching my county funds being stripped away. And the first 2 places I've seen it is in my social services and my mental health services, probably the 2 places we need it during COVID more than ever. So to get an update last night that New York was opening testing sites in Houston while watching the county funds being drained away was a real tough pill to swallow. And as I said, I'm probably preaching to the choir, but I would be remiss if I didn't voice my concern.
No, I'm glad you did. That's first I've heard that New York has opened testing sites in other states. I did get a similar vein complaint earlier today from somebody, saying that New York State is spending money on public service announcements in other states. That's certainly the role of the federal government, not the New York State taxpayer. So I think both of these are concerning. They're not shocking to me. I've seen crazier. But you're absolutely right, that is not a function of New York State government to open testing sites in Texas.
Thanks.
Ms. Clary.
Good morning. Could you please tell me that hazard pay is included in this next package?
That is one of the priorities. I've supported hazard pay for our essential workers. This district is made up of essential workers, not just healthcare workers, but our grocers, our truck drivers. The package has not been finalized yet, Sue, but that's something that has gotten bipartisan support. I certainly support that. And I think it's important as we think about the economic challenges that many families are facing, that hazard pay be a part of this next package. In addition, this ties into some of the discussion on the federal pandemic unemployment assistance, which is $600 in addition. That's been a top concern of small businesses. That expires at the end of July. And, the bill that was proposed by Speaker Pelosi extends that through the end of January 2021. That would devastate our small businesses locally. So I think the hazard pay model is a strong one because it incentivizes keeping folks back at work rather than staying out of work.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Going once, going twice? Thank you, Dan and Elise. Really appreciate you coming on and updating us like that. That's good information.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Sam.
Okay, moving on with the resolutions.
Resolution number 171 by Supervisors Hicks, Ward, O'Brien, Skelly, Clary, title amend staffing pattern, WIC.
Mr. Chairman, moving 171.
Moved by Supervisor Hicks, second. Campbell, O'Brien, Losa, Clary, Ward, and Fedler. Anybody else? Discussion. Mr. Shaw.
Yeah, how many hours or days or whatever does temporary mean? And what is the cost? Do we have a fixed cost for this? Because from what I'm reading, there's money to cover it due to breakage, but it wasn't in the budget, so. And why is it that we need, I missed the meeting, I apologize, so I'm sure there was discussion on this, but.
So the issue was that the current WIC program coordinator is retiring. And the recommendation of the public health director was to bring the retiring WIC program coordinator back on a temporary, as-needed basis to help the new program coordinator get through the federal budgeting cycle. The WIC program runs on a federal fiscal year, which means October 1st through September 31st. So they're kind of in the throes of the budget process right now. So what she wanted to do was to provide some overlap of the retiring coordinator with the new coordinator through the end of the budget process. So the exact number of hours is not known at this point. It will depend on how things go and how much time is needed. The breakage is due to a couple open positions that were held for the duration of COVID, or one of them, I believe, was from January 1st. So there's adequate breakage within the WIC budget to cover those costs. And then as far as temporary, how long does that mean? I believe the idea is roughly the beginning of October. I don't know that the public health director had a hard date in mind, but it was to get them through the budget process and to ensure a smooth transition.
Second part to that is it's 100% funded anyway, but it's like on contract, so the money is there, and next year we'll have a different set of money, but the money is there because of the breakage. So it's 100% funded. It really isn't, it's in our budget, but it's not our money, I guess. It's a direct pass-through, they call that out. If that helps.
Well, my concern is every year you accept or assume that there's going to be about $1 million in breakage in county payroll. And there's been several resolutions that says that there's money, due to breakage, there's money in it. But if we keep spending that, we won't have that $1 million of breakage. So I just, I'm cautioning everybody about that.
And that's why the breakage is basically built in, is because you don't know what department's going to need it and what department doesn't. But this year is totally different because of COVID.
We have hazard pay in there that we may or may not get, that may even take the breakage. We don't know how that's gonna play out.
I agree.
And so you bring up a great point. This one just happens to be one that it is 100% paid for, that we couldn't take their breakage anyway, I don't believe, because that's part of their contract. So that's not money that was potentially gonna be fund balance.
All of WIC is 100%?
Yes.
Yes.
It's not our fund balance
Okay.
that's being,
There is a caveat to that.
The,
All of the operating costs
Right.
of WIC are 100% federally funded. What we own is what I'll call a legacy cost. And that is specifically retiree health insurance. Once that transition occurs, there is not WIC funding to offset the retiree health insurance. That becomes a county cost.
That's what I thought. And our legacy cost right now is running what, close to 2 million?
I think it's a little bit under that, but I don't have the number in front of me. You may very well be right. I don't know off the top of my head.
That's what I recall.
Not just for WIC, that's for everybody.
Right.
told properly by Mr. Wicks himself.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 172 by Supervisor Skelly, Roselle, Campbell, Half, Hicks, Fedler, Shaw, Ferguson, titled to authorize request to New York State Department of Transportation to release maintenance jurisdiction for a piece of property located at 16723 State Route 22 in the town of Putnam.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution number 172.
Moved by Supervisor Skelly, second. Campbell. Fedler, Ferguson. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution
Supervisor Wilson abstains on this one. Thank you.
Okay, got an abstention from Darrell.
Resolution number 173 by Supervisors Clary, Campbell, Skelly, Griffith, titled set time and place for a public hearing concerning the 2020-2021 Adirondack Community College budget.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution number 173, please.
Moved by Supervisor Clary, second. Griffith, Campbell, O'Brien, Losaw, Wilson, Ferguson, Skelly. And just for your information, I ordinarily second almost everything, and because I'm being chairman today, I'm not doing that. Discussion. Mr. Shaw. I got it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I voted no on this at the joint meeting of ACC and Finance. I think we're sending the wrong message for an increase in any funding this year due to the extreme conditions, financial conditions we're being put under. I've always supported the ACC budget, and I still support ACC. But if we have to raise taxes this fall, or a possibility of raising taxes at a very high rate this fall, I don't believe this is a prudent direction to go in by increasing that. So I will vote no on that. I know that it has been explained that this is just a public hearing and we're not necessarily going to vote for it. But we're sending a message that we're willing to present it to the public, which means it looks like we're supporting it. And I can't, so I have to speak out against it now before we go down that road.
Okay, Mr. Hicks.
I gotta disagree with you, Dan. I think by voting no, you're saying you don't want public input, because you're preventing them. If this resolution fails, you're preventing the public from coming to tell you how they feel about it. I think you should vote yes, so the public will come and tell you how they feel, and they may agree with you.
Mr. Shaw.
Well, I can't argue with Matt's logic. So I will vote yes for this if we amend this budget to read that this is going to be a flat budget for ACC this year.
No budget for amendment at this time.
Well, you could, because it states in here what the increase would be. And that's what we're presenting to the public. So if you presented to the public that it was a flat budget, and that there'll be no increase this year, I can support that, and I would be willing to present that to the public. I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to the public hearing. So that's my amendment. If nobody seconds it, that means that this resolution will pass after the public hearing.
Okay, so you're making that as an
I'm
amendment?
making that as an amendment to this motion.
Okay, is there a second?
No,
Seeing none,
I just,
guess we're back to the original motion. Is there further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
No.
One no. It carries.
Resolution number 174 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Losaw, Ward, Griffith. Title: Amend Budget Youth Bureau for riding lawnmower.
Moving resolution 174.
Moved by Supervisor Campbell, second. Griffith, Losaw, O'Brien, Hass, Wilson, Fedler, Ward, Ferguson. You got everybody? Yep. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 175 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Losaw, Ward, Griffith. Title: To recognize federal COVID-19 stimulus funds for home delivered meals program.
Moving resolution number 175.
Moved by Supervisor Campbell, second. Losaw, O'Brien, Griffith, Clary, Wilson, Fedler, Ferguson, and Ward. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 176 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Losaw, Ward, Griffith. Title: Amend Budget Public Health for Delivery System Reform Incentive Program Funds.
Moving resolution 176.
Moved by Supervisor Campbell, second. Griffith, O'Brien, Losaw, Clary, Wilson, Fedler, Ward, and Ferguson. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 177 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Losaw, Ward, Griffith. Title: To amend the 2020 Sewer District Number 2 budget for the CDBG Cedar Street project in the town of Kingsbury and the village of Hudson Falls, and recognize DASNY grant.
Moving resolution number 177.
Moved by Supervisor Campbell, second. Griffith, Losaw, Clary, Ferguson. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 178 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Losaw, Ward, Griffith. Title: To amend the 2020 Sewer District Number 2 budget for the purchase of a sewer jetter.
Moving resolution 178.
Moved by Supervisor Campbell, second. Griffith, Losaw, Clary, Ferguson, and Fedler. Discussion. Thank God there's no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 179 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Losaw, Ward, Griffith, title to amend budget Sewer District Number 1 and Capital Project Number 121, Sewer District Number 1, Engineering and Rehabilitation.
Moving resolution 179.
Moved by Supervisor Campbell, second. Griffith, Clary, Losaw, Fedler, Ferguson. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 180 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Losaw, Ward, Griffith, title to amend the 2020 Sewer District Number 2 budget for compost O&M manual update.
Moving resolution 180.
Moved by Supervisor Campbell, second. Griffith, O'Brien, Losaw, Clary, Fedler, and Ferguson. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 181 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Losaw, Ward, Griffith, title amend budget jail to purchase equipment.
Moving resolution 181.
Moved by Supervisor Campbell, second.
Second.
Griffith, O'Brien, Losaw, Clary, Wilson, Fedler, Ward, Ferguson. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 182 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Losaw, Ward, Griffith, title to accept Canal Corporation grant, authorize chairman to sign contract, and establish project budget.
Moving resolution 182.
Moved by Supervisor Campbell, second. Griffith, O'Brien, Losaw, Clary, Rozelle, Wilson, Fedler, Ferguson. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 183 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Losaw, Ward, Griffith, title standard workday and reporting resolution.
Moving resolution 183.
Moved by Supervisor Campbell, second. Griffith, Fedler, Ward. I think that's it. Oh, Rozelle. Discussion. All those in favor?
This one's a roll.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's roll call. You didn't write that down on my, oh, I got mine, I'm sorry.
Mr. Hanky,
Yes.
Mrs. Fedler,
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Hall, absent. Mr. Losaw,
Yes.
Mr. Hicks,
Yes.
Mr. Ward,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. Haff,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Skelly,
Yes.
Mr. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mrs. Clary,
Yes.
Mr. Griffith,
Yep.
Mr. Rozelle.
Yes.
The resolution is adopted, 3,987 yes, 273 absent. Resolution number 184 by Supervisors Hicks, Ward, O'Brien, Skelly, Clary, title to appoint Glenn Bristol as fire coordinator.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution 184.
Moved by Supervisor Hicks, second. O'Brien, Clary, Wilson, Fedler, Ward, Hogan, Ferguson, Campbell. Missed anybody? Discussion. Mr. Haff.
This one confuses me a little. Isn't Glenn already the fire coordinator?
Yes, sir. The fire coordinator also works for the Argyle School District, and in his full-time job as Argyle School District employee, he retired. And it's a quirk of the retirement system that when an employee does that, they have to be off the payroll for a day. So this is the mechanics of removing Mr. Bristol from the payroll, our payroll, and then reinstating him to satisfy the requirements of the retirement system.
I remember that now. Thank you.
Yeah, we have done that before. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, we're moving on to supervisor's comments. Mr. Campbell.
So there was a newspaper article by Kathleen Moore on July 10th that showed $2.7 million in increased costs, with decreased revenue. So basically, the number isn't actually wrong. What we found is the inconsistencies of timing and things to that magnitude that I just think we should clarify. So the 2.7 million is the difference of January to June, year-to-date, last year to this year. The 700,000 right off the top of that was workers' comp. Last year was paid in July, this year was paid in June. So it showed an extra $700,000 going out the door, which was going to go next month, and then it would have been apples to apples. So that's 700,000 there. The other big discrepancy, or the way it looks, it's not true. $134,000 in the district attorney's office. This is mostly positions that were added in November for discovery, so they weren't included at all last year in January to June. This year they are. And of course, then when you spread out workers' comp through all the departments, it threw out all those numbers, and in the district attorney's office alone, since that was the one that stuck right out, it was 28,000 there in the workers' comp. So there's basically $106,000 there in new costs. So sometimes we don't get the right message out there. And it's not that the numbers aren't accurate for, January to June year to date. The numbers are accurate. But the way they're perceived, I guess the only part that isn't accurate is the part about the workers' comp. That's just the timing issue. It's still going to be paid, or already was paid, and last year it wasn't paid till later, so they would have matched up better. And we just have to do a better job at getting the message out there of what is real and what isn't. And I'm not looking to swat anybody on this. I'm just wanting to make sure that we have a little clarity for anybody that read it. I didn't actually even see the report. It was handed to me. I said, well, maybe I better clarify some of that because it's not exactly the way it is. So it was really just $2 million in increased costs, and some of them are actually new positions, and of course, some of it's probably COVID-related also.
Thank you. Anybody else? Spedler.
I just wanted to caution, it came up in my town board meeting where some of the teachers came and they complained because there was no service and they named specific roads. It turned out that it's just the residents didn't know they had service on the roads, that Verizon has gone through there and they do have service, just nobody realized and hadn't looked into it. Also, I want to caution everybody's excitement on having an MiFi. I have one. You all know that I go on, I go off, I break down, the computer doesn't hold up. It's better than nothing, but the only way I can even stay in these meetings is by using the phone and the computer. And when the kids try and do schoolwork here, because so much of it is on video, at least this particular MiFi can't handle any video, doesn't pick it up. So they're better than nothing, but I don't know if you want to get super excited about them. That's all.
Yeah, I'd reiterate that. That's what I'm on. That's one you're all probably very happy when I'm home. My face keeps disappearing. That's probably a good thing for, the overall aesthetic. Okay, Mr. Skelly.
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to the sheriff and all his deputies for the work they did on the 4th of July around all the bat and kill party swimming areas, especially over at Eagle Bridge where they were 2 or 3 of them working with DEC and the Forest Rangers. At any given time, I took a ride around to all the swimming spots. I bet there was 1,500 to 2,000 people on the river that day, and every place was packed. And most of them, I won't say most, but a lot of them were out of towners, And I noticed a surprise on some of them. They were walking down the road to the river. They were coming to a big party, they thought, and then they saw all the sheriffs standing there. So as far as I know, there was no major incidents. I like them coming and spending their money in Washington County, but sometimes there's problems that come with them. So thank you to the sheriffs. It was a hot day that day.
Yes, it was. Mr. Half.
I don't think we should confuse MiFi with Wi-Fi. If you all remember when we were teenagers and we all had hi-fi, high fidelity, Wi-Fi is wireless fidelity, and I think MiFi is municipal. So you don't want to maybe, interchange the terms. I think there's a big difference between the two.
Claire.
I want to say the same as Jay. They've been incredible in keeping track of the river. And fortunately, due to lack of rain, people had to start walking. So the numbers started decreasing, the traffic on the river. But now that last night's rain, it could go back up. That being said, you look at Dorset Swimming Quarry Hole and the COVID outbreak in Vermont, and the amount of struggles that Vermont, Manchester and Dorset are having right now is due to that close proximity. So it takes it up to another level. So in the Battenco River, our Jay's rowdy side of the river and Salem's peaceful side of the river does have a lot of people that come through, and they're from everywhere. So we could have the same problem, and we don't want that. So thanks, Jay, and thanks to the Washington County Sheriff's, State and DEC and Forest Rangers.
Of course, there's not supposed to be anybody there because they're fishing access sites, deeded for fishing access only. It's not supposed to be any other activities. Mr. Ferguson's next.
Yes, I'd like to thank Dana Half for coming up with the My Cow idea. I'll be calling Hudson Wireless today and just bringing that by them and see if they can bring us up a cow or a My Cow, whatever you want to call it.
Your cow. Your cow.
Your cow. Thank you.
I'm still offended. Mr. O'Brien's next, and Mr. Wilson.
So, two things. I want to get back to the broadband for a second. I did forward to Debbie the map of who was awarded to build out in the areas in Washington County. I've asked her to send it out to everyone. I know people had it a long time ago, but this is a refresher course. I did take a quick notice, and Dresden is mostly all pink. So, but I've talked to Kevin Lynch from Slick. One of the problems is because of the permitting process with the poles, they may have 10 miles that are approved, they may have another 5 miles that are not approved, they may have another 20 miles that are approved, then they have half miles that's approved, so they can't go sling string all the way through, so they're going from place to place to place. So that's what they're looking at. So the second thing, and I'd like to say, I did have a conversation with WL Plastics after the news they gave us. You want to communicate to everyone that they were very encouraged by the support they got up here. They were very excited that they wanted to come up here. It was their corporate that made their holding corporation that made the decision at the last minute. So he just wanted to communicate. He was really disappointed he didn't finish the project up here or start whatever. And he wanted to compliment people on the support that we gave them. So thank you.
Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. Just want to say thanks and appreciate the conversations on connectivity. Be very helpful for Putnam as well. Not as dire as Dresden, but understandable. Do want to let everybody know I asked for an update from the Champlain Hudson Power Express. As you know, that's a DC current line from Canada all the way down to the boroughs of New York City. That project is progressing. Their plan is to come out of the lake at Lake Champlain in Putnam and then move along the road through Dresden into Whitehall as to a point where they can get back into the water because that's most cost effective to them. The update is that they began work in our county next year, sometime next year. So I don't know if anyone's at the county level is talking to them. If we need to, I can get you the contact, but the gentleman, Josh Bagnato, is the vice president, project development. Transmission Developers Incorporated. He's leading that. So get you in contact with them for an update on timeline and the impacts it's going to have. Unfortunately, State Route 22 is part of that project. So I know we're paving that. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Hass is next.
Never mind.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, I apologize for being a little bit slower than my normal business activity here. It took me a minute to get used to looking at the screen instead of trying to look around the room, but it does work. I wanted to point out that we're seeing some sort of alarming things in the COVID field. Our region is up. We've had the largest increase, in the state right now, in new positives. It's not us. It's not Washington County. Washington County is, the lowest in the region right now. But I'm just wanted to wave that flag, because if that continues in some of these other areas, then we're going to see some retrenchment and some changing. It's going to affect us just like it affects the rest of the region. He doesn't separate by counties, we go by regions. So just, everybody keep wearing your mask and keep encouraging, good hygiene as much as we can. Anybody else? Mr. Shaw? No? Okay. We are adjourned.